Hi, I'm Michael Hartman,
I'm Naomi Liu.
And I'm Mike Rizzo, and this is OpsCast,
a podcast for marketing ops pros
and RevOps pros.
Created by the Mo Pros, the #1 community for marketing operations professionals.
Tune in to each episode as we chat with real professionals to help elevate you in your marketing operations career.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of OpsCast, brought to you by marketingops.com, powered by the Mo Pros. I'm your host, Michael Hartman, joined today by co-host Mike Rizzo. Mike's in the house. What's happening,
I'm
Mike?
in the house. I'm literally in my house.
In the house. I think that's the way we all are, including our guests.
So many of us.
Let's just get right to it. So joining us today, talk about how to maximize your relationship between marketing ops and the CMO is one of my favorite marketers and leaders, Scott Vaughan. Scott is currently a fractional executive and go-to-market advisor to the C-suite and investors with Vaughan Go-to-Market Advisory, which is his own business. Prior to that, Scott was the Chief Growth Officer and CMO at Integrate. Scott was also CMO at UBM TechWeb, which is the predecessor where I work now, and has held other marketing leadership roles in other industries. So Scott is a prolific writer and speaker about marketing, leadership, business, and just an all-around great guy. Scott, welcome, and thanks for joining us today.
What an intro. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
Nice to talk to you guys, talk shop. Love what you do.
Yeah, well,
Favorite thing.
It is. No one better. So we are glad to have you here. So, all right. So let's get right to it. So Scott, you do have a unique perspective on the intersection of marketing operations and CMO role because you were CMO, you've led marketing, you also worked at MarTech companies selling to marketing ops probably a lot. I know that's kind of how you and I met. So when we chatted before this, that you said that like folks that are in marketing ops, our primary audience should understand what is on the CMO's agenda. But I think it would be good to have you sort of explain, what do you mean by that? And then how can our, the listeners we have or audience kind of get a better insight into that, maybe for their particular situation where they have a different, maybe their marketing leader, they haven't really connected the dots on that.
Yeah. Well, every organization is unique. And in my background, I got excited about MarTech in, 2005, 6, 7, when put in a first instance of Eloqua, probably more correctly shoved it into an organization that was using an old database. And I bought the dream that we were going to be revenue marketers because we had some marketing tools that last beyond an analytics that we just didn't have before. So that's been my passion around the value of technology in the process as a CMO. But one of the things I've learned over time, especially getting to sit down and work hand in hand with so many marketing ops people and also bringing marketing technology into the organization. And I mean, when I say technology, I mean data, process, analytics, all the components, is that the marketing ops role has a chance to be, and it depends on the company, but a chance to be literally the chief of staff to run marketing like a business. I believe that from day one. The technology and data process is exactly what's needed, because one of the biggest challenges in marketing, and certainly for a CMO, is to not just prove the value, but to deliver business value to so many different aspects of the organization. We go through periods where we get so locked in as sales as our customer, which is important, don't get me wrong. But sometimes we oversteer there. We only serve sales. And really what we need to do is serve the market, serve customers. And to do that, we have to lock arms and share data, interconnect our tech with the operations teams, the finance teams, the product teams. And to me, that's where marketing ops can play such a pivotal role. Of course, we have to deliver against our revenue numbers and our quota and all of that. But marketing ops is in a perfect position, especially after a decade plus of putting in a lot of the systems and building up the data and analytics and intelligence capabilities and redefining the lead to revenue process we've gone through.
Yeah, I think we've talked with several guests about like the unique position that marketing ops teams tend to be in because they understand how that, not only do they have access to the data, but they understand the sort of the mechanics of how it gets there, how to interpret it. And the best time to start showing that is right now, right? Not waiting for perfect data. Because I think everyone who's listening is going, yeah, but my data is dirty. So what, right? Everybody's is. So you got to work around it. I think it's really interesting your point about sales being seen as the internal customer. And I think I probably fall into that trap too. Like if a salesperson sort of screams, hey, we're not getting the right leads or we're not getting enough leads, right? It's easy to sort of shift and move everything over there. So how have you, maybe a little, how would you guide marketing ops? I'm sure you've had marketing ops teams that have gone through that same kind of scenario. Like how have you guided them or supported them on addressing that kind of sort of panic attack from a sales team?
Yeah. So I'll take that a couple of ways. The first thing, let's take the holistic view of how do you get the credibility to earn a seat at the CMO table, so to speak, or to have that access. And then we'll tackle how do you avoid the everybody to the right every day, right? Everybody to the left the next day, where you can't do that. And I know that's reality of the job, by the way. I'm not naive about that. But the first thing is, how do you build your credibility? Marketing ops does have unique access to the data, the intelligence, the systems, the processes. But sometimes we stay in our own lane, and it's almost like you're the whisperer for the CMO, right? And so I'm using CMO as a head of marketing. They could be, whatever, but the CMO office, let's call that. You're the one who is able to understand, starting from the OKRs or the objectives or the KPIs, and keeping laser focused on that, and then building or adapting the systems, the data, the processes around those. But to do that, to be that whisperer in the ear that's so valuable. My friend Deb Wolf, who has been a colleague, been a customer, been a confidant, whatever, she used to say, my head of marketing ops is my BFF. We go nowhere. We go everywhere together. We're never apart, because that ability to go in, the marketing ops person can also do the homework, across the organization to look at what's the data warehouse, what's the data lake, what's the BI systems that are operating across the company. How do we better work with those and those teams? What are their KPIs? So you're feeding that information, and the CMO now is going proactively so they get a full picture. What's happening in product today with product-led growth, right? So much of that is inside the product. So I need that data, I need that systems, and I need to understand that. Well, marketing ops can go beyond running those systems and be that confident to the office of the CFO, either literally because they are a more senior person or a person on the team who has that expertise.
Right.
And I know it's hard because, the building's on fire, sales is screaming, right? And oh my God, I can't get this report and I've got 10 minutes to I get all that. That's reality. But every job has that. At some point, you have to get proactive. And that is where that education happens. And when you work with sales, the key is to treat sales as a partner, not a customer. And that is, I know I've seen a lot of the stuff that comes out from your group about when to say no, how to say no,
right,
how to delicately do that. But it's not about being the office of no. You don't want to get that reputation, but rather reset the relationship. And partnering with your CMO, you can do that. You can go in locked arms together and sit down with sales and say, let's review those priorities again. Let me make sure I understand where the gap is or what your need is, et cetera. But treat them like a partner, not like a customer. Because at the end of the day, you guys, one of the things I've learned the most is start in market, and I'm not just with customers, but holistically, what is happening in your market? What is happening with your audience, not just your customer? And what are the things that you can do to better engage those audiences, et cetera? If you get that going in the right direction, it seems like the priorities get closer and aligned, because at the end of the day, that's, for example, what sales needs is to get that engagement.
Hey everyone, Mike Rizzo here, CEO of MarketingOps.com and co-host of OpsCast. I've got a little secret to share with you, something that's been one of the best kept perks of our community until now. At MarketingOps.com, we've built a hiring program that's changing the game for marketing operations recruitment, and we're finally sharing it with the world. Our community is over 22,000 strong, and within that, we have over 4,400 members who are actively and passively seeking new opportunities. These are seasoned professionals with skills and experience spanning platforms like HubSpot, Pardot, Marketo, and so much more. Plus, we can help you fine-tune your outreach, targeting exactly the right candidates by region, years of experience, seniority level, or even agency experience. But here's the real cherry on top. When you hire through our program, your new team member gets a free membership or a virtual ticket to our annual conference. From day one, they're not just stepping into a new role, they're getting access to the training, networking, and support they need to hit the ground running. So if you're ready to unlock this incredible opportunity, it's time to let this secret out. Visit marketingops.com and find your next star teammate today. Thanks for listening, and as always, keep optimizing.
Yeah, I think the way I approach it, one, I feel like sometimes we're the ones connecting dots, right? So I may have one marketing team asking for something or wanting to know something, and sales is asking for something else, and maybe finance as well, right? And being able to sort of understand the connectivity between all those to help then go like, here's where I think we really need to be focusing on because this is a real issue. And by the way, I'm dealing with this right now. There is a problem with our lead flow, right? That needs to be fixed. So pivoting from that, like knowing when to pivot because there is actually something to do versus somebody just sort of being a squeaky wheel is a thing that you have to differentiate on. And I think that's something that I've
It's not an easy one. Yeah, no. I can feel it the way your tone of voice, the way you're doing that. It's not an easy one. It's reality. It happens every day. But reason number, 111 of getting that relationship with your CMO and staying in sync and being able not to just complain and bitch about it. Right. Although there's times therapy is important.
Right.
But rather being able to sit down and say, hey, here are things that are repeating. Here's a solution, or here's how I think we should tackle it. What do you think? It goes both ways. So that relationship, again, going back to the CMO marketing ops relationship, is so highly valued. And you want to be careful, in my opinion, that you don't get stuck as the tech person either.
Absolutely.
Because then you're going around with your toolkit one by one, solving everybody's one-off problem. IT had the same problem, still does at times, but certainly they had it a decade or two ago where IT is the reactive people. You want to be on your front foot as much as you can and proactive. And that's where you really start to drive value in the business, value in your role. You get to see and experience more. And, if you're interested, your career takes new opportunity, new doors open.
Yeah, that trap of getting stuck in the tools, the person that has like the tool chest, right? Or like, hey, can't we just do this, right? And
it's so easy.
It's super easy. And like the challenge is like a lot of us have a lot of fun with that, right?
It's very satisfying, right? You see something complete. Yeah.
You accomplish things, you fix things. And by the way, I'm not saying that's a part of the job. That is absolutely. But if that is your whole job, then you may not get to the aspirations and the things that you want to do because you've now been put in this role, this box that's more tech oriented only. By the way, if that's what you dig and love, there is a career for you because that is a big need at companies, and there's nothing wrong with that. I want to underline that. However, what you ask and what we're talking about is how do you continue to advance, escalate, get to new interesting things, add more value, hopefully, increase your incentives and your income. So you do things in life and family, all the things we a lot of people want to do it. That's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to understand that the function of being a deep technical expert in a field and a practitioner in a space doesn't mean that you're limited by financial earning potential and all those things. Like, there's a lot of great organizations that will pay very well for your desire to be that expert and that enabler and that partner to the CMO. But if you have that desire to go more strategic, there's a lot of opportunity for you to uncover that in this function. And I love that this started off right away with the idea of the chief of staff commentary again, right? The last episode we just aired was all about chief of staff, and this was not exactly planned, so I think that's super spot on and timely for a lot of the conversation that we're seeing right now. I'm curious from your perspective, Scott. There was this wonderful series of posts that have been going out from Jessica Cow lately on LinkedIn. But the one she's doing a really great job of really elevating some of the conversation in the space. The one that came up this morning was around the idea of like building a roadmap. How have you seen that done in your sort of partnership with marketing ops in the past? She really calls out the roadmap as, a little bit of the objective OKR model, right? So objective is improve, MQL quality by implementing processes to allow for optimization, right? That's not, updating your lead score program, right? So I'd be curious, like, how has roadmap sort of come into play throughout your career? I know this is a bit of a curveball, so I apologize if I'm dropping this on you, but I have a feeling you have at least some experience in this.
Well, at the end of the day, we're delivering, whether it's a product or a service, you need a roadmap, right? It needs to align with the market. It needs to align with the company. It needs to align with your go-to-market, and then it needs to align with marketing. So there's alignment everywhere. Yeah. And if you don't have a roadmap, and you're not sharing that roadmap. So let's go back, just for simplicity's sake, to the CMO marketing ops relationship, our main theme today. Yeah. You want to be side by side, feeding into the overall marketing strategy, plan, and roadmap for sure, and align what you're doing. You want to build a roadmap. And to me, just my own bias, it's not just a tech roadmap, although that's a piece of it, of course. But it's a roadmap to how you mature your capabilities and services in ops to support marketing and the business and more the customer. So that's the kind of thinking that has to go in. So roadmaps are essential. And that's why I said, whether you're a product or a service, and in marketing ops, we're often a service to the organization, that needs a roadmap. And so otherwise you stay stuck in reactive mode. Yeah. And you don't make the advances to advance with the business or the market or the customer, depending on what your objectives are overall in the company. And that's really where you get stuck. And that can get frustrating because all you're doing is fixing things and reacting to things. So that roadmap is important. And the other thing, Jessica can scale up and down so quickly.
Oh, yes, she can.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, we go from top strategy down into the weeds, like super fast.
That's a so great, right? And that's what we're talking about. Though.
Absolutely,
that's the reality of marketing ops. You have to be able to hang in a conversation, around scoring models and algorithms, and the next minute you're talking about breakthrough go-to-market, and are we going to apply generative AI now to our email? It's going to vary drastically. Yeah. But I think the main point on having a roadmap is you're able to share it, you're able to build it, you're able to get buy-in from people, of course, your CMO and people across your marketing leadership team, because at the end of the day, if you have different marketing and sales ops or finance ops, you want that buy-in, because the more they get and see and touch and feel, the more they're going to support the effort because they see the outcomes. If you hide it, right? Oh, this is mine. This is my roadmap. Don't look at it. I'm being dramatic here, but that's where you get into trouble, because then all of a sudden, they have to slash some budget somewhere. And if that hasn't been well communicated with clear value, you could get the swatch, or you go to do things and everybody's looking around like, what are you doing? I didn't know you were doing this.
Right.
I want you to do that. And so you haven't been able to do that. You haven't been able to accomplish what you want to do. Excuse me.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting. Even so, the only thing I push back on there is that there's this sort of, I want to protect it like it's mine. I don't want to share it. I think some people might in the role have a solid roadmap, but are uncomfortable or don't know how to share it.
Fair. Yeah.
Right. So I think there's some of that too, which, because it's like anybody, I think you have to learn, like when you get that criticism, like you might get criticism of it, and how you take that is going to be really important to like, okay, well, yeah, maybe I can learn something.
So there's a couple of things you can do, Mike. I'm so glad you pointed that out, because, whatever you call it, imposter syndrome, or right, it's so real. It is. And I have learned over time that as long as you're authentic and you're there, and your odds of success are pretty high. But there's things you can do. There's a couple things I've done. So who does great roadmaps? Product marketing people. Okay. Do I have a pal in product marketing? The product team, typically. Our friend, any form of search, AI driven or otherwise, you can really see different roadmaps that were built that you can get inspiration from. Right, that's
really. I have never thought of going to a product marketer or product management team.
Yes, they're great at it.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And because they can take an eye and say, you need a little more detail here. You're going to get, or that's not quite clear. You need to visualize this, in a graph so that people see the motion and the time frame together with your written, or whatever it is.
Sure.
And those kinds of things, those resources all around you. And that's where there is some confidence and humbleness to come forth and say, hey, do you have a few minutes? Can I show you something? Very few people will say, well, no, you can't show me any, this is
right.
I don't want to help you.
Right. Exactly. This is what is so great about working with colleagues and learning, et cetera. And again, it builds a bond. If you go to product marketing, now you've got product marketing as an ally, as an example, or you go to product, you have product as an ally who's now excited and rooting for you and understands more of what we're trying to do.
It's such a great call out, Scott. And when you, as a marketing practitioner of any kind, in any professional function for that matter, when you go to somebody else and you say, can you take a look at what I'm doing? Right? Because I believe you can give me the feedback I need in order to improve on my work. It actually, if I go to Scott or Hartman here and I say that to them, they go, wow, this individual really respects my opinion. They think highly of me, highly enough to ask for my opinion. And therefore you're earning this trust. And then all of a sudden, when they see what you're doing, imagine an entirely different functional area of the company, seeing what you're doing, they're going to turn around and want to be a champion for you, because they're going to go, wow, what you're doing is really cool. I had no idea that's what you were trying to accomplish, right?
Absolutely. And by the way, that's a great byproduct of it, but your service will get better over time with those inputs. And you don't want to stop till I get 37 points of input. As Michael, you always say, and you've said this, let's keep iterating, let's keep moving. The data's never going to be perfect,
right?
But you're going to keep building off of it. And that's important. And then sometimes it becomes adopted as the standard. If you show a way that part of your roadmap is part of your strategy plan, I'm always amazed how often that gets adopted as maybe a standard or a core piece. Hey, product marketing, you need to do this, and communications or Marcom, you need to do this, and et cetera, et cetera. You want to be that unifying force, I think, certainly across the marketing function, and then being able to put your tentacles out to those key connection points through finance and through operations, through product, where it makes sense to have more of an impact, et cetera. And you'll know that by your organization and by asking questions and building relationships over time, that will help you.
Yeah. So I want to bring this back a little bit. So one of the things I think people in our role also struggle with is really understanding. This really became obvious at summer camp this last year, and to bring up Jessica again, Jessica helped facilitate a thing where we had a CMO in there and we were talking about how to present and communicate the findings from some data. Didn't really matter what it was. And it was especially even for people who I think probably felt like they were pretty good at that. I'll put myself in that camp, like was very humbling, right? It was like, oh my gosh,
Yes.
how that CMO is interpreting this, or really what they're looking for, is a very different one. So what are the things that would, as a CMO or marketing leader, would you like keep you up at night? And where do you think that marketing ops folks can help with that? Or is there do we need to just have that direct conversation with our marketing leaders and then work from there?
Well, every marketing leader is a little bit different in their style, how they present, what they share, what they don't share. And I mean, share up, share sideways, share down. So you've got to read the room a little bit, like always. You don't want to go in assuming. So yes,
Absolutely.
Always reach out, know what's important, ask for feedback, do those 3 or 4 questions, even if it's over email, etc. But some of the best techniques I've seen, and I've completely stolen them, by the way. I worked with somebody who I respect, was a CMO and VP, and this is a major enterprise. This was 5 years ago. And they said, I can't go into sales and tell them that I know everything about the buyer's journey and everything about, lead routing and scoring, because they just stepped into this role. And our data and reporting is good, but it's all over the place. So what they began to do at their monthly business review together, sales and marketing, is they would lock arms with sales and they would pick 2 stories. The story of a win. And so they would have the data, but the data wouldn't be like so perfect and an analytical, let's break down the 27 points, because that's what we strive for, right? To really be data-driven, analytical. But they begin to change their tone of, before we get into the macro data, let's talk about what worked in, a couple of wins. And there they could show, oh, well, we know they went to the website, 26 people went to the website over a 3-month period. And they start to tell a story about this. There was still data in it, by the way, but it wasn't so analytical that you're kind of spinning, well, what's the freaking point? So that was something I found valuable to say, well, we picked a win of the week and we want to dissect what we learned. People lean in like, okay, what can I learn from that? And then you can go, okay, let me give you the macro or maybe the micro. Maybe you need to drill down. If you send your reports in advance, someone has some questions. And I got used to that, you guys, by having to go to investor meetings, because you have to send your package in advance. And then you don't want to put too much, but that question is going to be asked. So I'll put it in the appendix, and you kind of know which investor is going to ask probably what question, then you're always surprised. So that's part of it. You do have to prepare and over prepare for those discussions, but you want to be able to tell a story first. And I don't mean wax poetic and that you have to be an elegant speaker and all these things, but just say, hey, we took a couple of wins of the week. We dissected what they did over the last 60 days, 6 months, a year, right. The account, the buyer, and some of that is manual for some folks.
It is absolutely. So for those on video, probably seeing me smiling at this, for our listeners, I am, because this is so much in line with what I think that has been missing with, to me, like if we get in the debate about marketing attribution, I think there's a place for it still, but I think that storytelling piece, and that is exactly the word I would use, I found it to be way more valuable when, especially going up with sales or to finance, is having those examples, because humans are wired for storytelling. Right.
Yeah.
And
and you can still have the data. You still can have a section where let's break down what we know, but what we learned, and giving an example is helpful, right? And we don't stop there and go, okay, yeah, here's
Absolutely.
My story of the week. I see you guys later. But then you can show, well, we made this kind of progress, what we're seeing now, 3 things we're observing, right? One of the things we need to improve, so you need to be humble about that. One of the things we didn't get done that we promised. You've got to be right there, because otherwise you lose credibility quickly and you go on the defensive. And because you brought it up, I'm saying it, and I'll say it, or Mike had to see me dump my 2016-17 article that I refer to all the time. Attribution is essential. Let's just call it. But if you're in the credit game, if you're out to prove something, it will get you every time. Because that's trying to put the end game and then try to prove your case versus let's see what the data tells us. Does that pass the sniff test of, does that feel like what's going on? Let's put that against some scenarios that we're seeing in our company, in the market, in our sales process, or in the pipeline, whatever it is. I think let's never be confused. A huge part of the job of marketing ops is proving value and delivering value. You can deliver value, but if you can't prove it, or at least have some data and facts to back it, you won't be in this gig for long. As a CMO, forget it. You're done.
Yeah.
Let's stop debating it, even though that's why attribution is fine. I don't arm wrestle it to the ground anymore. But if it becomes a game of credit and we're running around trying to prove stuff, boy, is that unproductive.
Yep.
It may not seem like it for a couple of quarters, but over time, you're now getting further and further into a trap that you can't get out of, and it's deadly.
No, I'm 100% there with you.
The credit thing irks me to my core. I know I'm never going to change anybody's opinion about the word credit, but that's okay.
Well, even if I think a lot of
I think it's the right, but
All
that
right,
is
we
the
got
right
Michael
message.
O'Reilly here. That's good. We got two stuff.
It just it's so sad to me that credit ended up being a 4-letter word, in the world of B2B marketing. It's silly. At the end of every movie, there are credits. Everybody gets credit for making that movie possible. It's ridiculous to me that the word credit means that it's mine, and that it's not everybody and it's not shared success. Literally, you take college credits to earn a degree, many credits, in order to get there. And I keep fighting this fight. I know I'm never going to change anybody's mind on it, but the message is right. At the end of the day, we're saying the same thing.
The message is right, because if you can't deliver value and put things into analytical terms, it may not be at the micro level, but if you can't see how needles are moving to a good portion of your investment or your effort, you go.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to be in that gig very long today. And I think that's fair. And by the way, different stages of different companies. Are you a disruptor, startup, a legacy, category, want to be leader, or are you the category queen, or whatever it is? There are different dynamics in different markets. So there's no one set way to that level of analytics and attribution that's required. But understanding that is really important. And that's why I think the marketing ops profession can't just stay within marketing. You have so much more credibility if you have access to data at the company BI level, or, locking arms with the office of finance or the office of the CFO, depending on their size of company, what you have access to. And certainly with sales, I think that's getting better and better, not perfect, but sales ops we're seeing that more and more consistently. Again, never perfect, not every company, but boy, have we made progress in that area over the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, and I think you brought up something in the kind of this thread here that I think was really important. I want to put a kind of highlight a little bit, which is in that development of the stories, right? And you talked about anticipating the questions that might come up. So I think that is a really important sort of sub skill or things you can learn, because if you're just running reports and sending them out, even if you're not actually looking at them going, oh, this is an interesting, something here is unusual, it stands out, right? It doesn't match the pattern or whatever. I have a data guy, and I'm always I think of it this way, right? And have we thought about that? And it does beg additional questions, but then then you can start to anticipate this other person who's a commercial leader for our business may ask about this particular thing. And we if we can have some work started on trying to answer that next question, again, another way of sort of building credibility, but it's something you have to look for.
Yeah. And role playing with a couple of people, maybe even with your marketing leader or the marketing leader, right? The CMO or a marketing leader in there. Hey, can I run this by you? I want to see what your view is. And how do you think the finance team will look at this? Or how do you think the sales ops team will view this? What do we got? I even, now this is going to sound cornball, but sometimes I would go with my wife and I'd ask her, can you look at this? She's pretty savvy on data. Can you take a look at this? What do you see? And it's unbiased. She doesn't know necessarily all the levers of the business. So even that can be of help. By the way, this is not advocacy to get your partner involved in work. That might blow up. But you get the idea that there's all kinds of sources at your fingertips, but you just have to ask and you have to build a relationship. And by the way, you have to be reciprocal. And the more you're reciprocal, the more wow, I didn't realize that we were doing that over in our digital team. And now you see something that you didn't know. That's how organizations learn. Because it's really freaking hard to do this on Zoom or any other, we don't have we're going to pile in a conference room and whiteboard this out as a team. We have to get together and plan, and there's just different things, dynamics so this is a natural way to help fuel that.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Okay, so I think I want to shift back. You brought up the chief of staff kind of model, and it could be a potential, like, in terms of sort of career paths for people who are in marketing ops, because I think up until recently, I think a lot of people would have told you, like, it sort of dead ends at a director level, almost. There's now some VP levels, and there's some people who are doing, moving into revenue operations roles. Although my perception is that most of the people who get in those roles come from the sales side as opposed to marketing, but that's a whole separate thing. But I'm really curious to get your thoughts on, where do you think, marketing ops folks who do want to go beyond just the technology stuff, as we talked about, like, what are some logical next steps, and then what are the things that would make them, that they should be thinking about, not only for those next steps, but say they have aspirations to be like a head of marketing, right? What do you think our listeners should be thinking about for that path?
So you want to acquire more skills, more discipline, right? More discipline experience of disciplines, I should say. So, for example, if you're in MarTech, you may move over to the digital team. Because you have credibility of the market, the business, and what campaigns and programs and analytics been run, you can exercise those skills and those muscles and go and take on that role. Because the more diversity of experience you have that are tied to the drivers of the business or the outcomes, revenue, for example, the much higher experience you get. And you can do that a little bit earlier in your career, because once you have the marketing ops chops, they don't go away. They're built into you. And that's the great part, because you can get up to speed pretty damn quickly on tech and process, et cetera, because it's always going to be a part of what you do. And I'll use the example of moving to digital or the digital team. The other way to do that, to think about it, you can move into finance. So much of finance today, and I'm not saying to be a bean counter in accounting and all that necessarily, but they've got power data and BI and analytics people that look across the business. That is a chief of staff kind of thinking, where you can see, gain a different view, but you have all the analytical process, the technology, and the budgeting, all those things you've had experience coming up through that. Move over into finance. I had one example of a person who I'll call it mentoring, but a very close confidant. I knew I'd be working for her any day now. That's how good she was as a young pro. She went and she worked for the board of directors at a public company in the strategy group. Because she was so impressed, all the analytical thinking and what she put together on roadmaps and planning and strategy. She was seen as someone, and her CMO unleashed her to not just the CMO to speak, but her to speak and in front of other audiences. And so that was a move. Let's go to the side, but it was moved to up, and now she's back in, and she actually leads. She's a VP of marketing over a number of functions. So there are ways to do that, but the key is talk to people, be part of your group, step outside your comfort zone, reach out to people on LinkedIn you admire, where you see they've done some of that work. People are so open, you guys, not every single person, but for the most part, it's so great to be able to get other people's perspective. Everyone asks me, how do you see so much about the market? I have a lot of conversations.
Yes, you do.
I take my theories, right? Here's what I'm seeing. What are you seeing? And go research that and kind of formulate the point of view and what might happen. That becomes a skill that you can get, and that's going towards that chief of staff kind of thinking, where you can see a broader picture.
Right.
Your eyes, ears whisper. You're organized, that kind of thing.
So I want to get back into the chief of staff stuff in a minute, but you've mentioned, I think, both directly and indirectly a little bit, a couple of times, the idea of mentorship, and I'll add sort of advocacy, because that scenario you painted about that person, right, had an advocate in that CMO who unleashed her, right?
Yeah.
And basically, I'm sure it was the person who was like advocating for her. So how important do you think that is for people who are getting started? Do you think it? Because I've done some mentoring as well, and I'm always impressed with the people who actually early in their career really seek that out. And I'm curious what your take is on that.
I had the same question.
Yeah.
I was like, because I, just transparently, Scott, and for all the listeners, like, I'm really trying to wrap my head around how we enable more of that connectivity as a community for mentorship type of programming, right? So we've got folks like Hartman, we've got folks like Hannah. She's doing more coaching than mentorship. And I think there's a slight variation between what those things really mean, but I am curious, like, back to Hartman's question, the importance of that and how you sort of leverage that in your career.
Well, you need a mentor or a coach, and they are slightly different, but let's not get into semantics for this purpose. You need somebody who you can bounce things off of. Maybe they're in your organization, maybe they're not. I think having a couple of people that aren't in your organization that either you have regularly scheduled calls with, or that you have on your calendar to reach out, etc. I'm going to say this quick and then I'll come back. Then you've got to give back. Now, as you get more experience, you've now got to give back to the next group that's coming through. It's the pay it forward mentality, not just for good karma. It just makes you better. I do some work now, people coming just into the workforce. I'm at that point in my life age where friends now have kids coming into the workforce. So I'm very happy to spend time, and damn, do I learn a lot.
I have the same experience.
Yeah. And so this mentoring, as you guys talked about, is important. Yes, they could become advocates for you, but that will happen naturally. You don't have to go, can you give me a LinkedIn reference? Right? Those days are kind of,
Right.
I don't know. But like the people I talk to, I know them. I know what they're about. I've seen how they thought through things, how they've navigated, how they've knocked down obstacles, what they've done. So you're going to more naturally become an advocate for that person,
right,
even a referral for that person. So mentoring is you no matter where you are in your career, you always need one. I know I benefited from it. And I worked at a school as a marketing communications manager at a young company of 20 people that went to 400 in just under 4 years. So it was one of the first explosions of a tech company. Lucky as hell. But I had and I'll say a woman head of marketing, and she made me better.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
She would, and she gave me leash to go, maybe hang myself, but she'd give me leash to go and run. And then she'd say, okay, what'd you see? What'd you hear? Why didn't the product team really think? She wouldn't tell me what to do necessarily. There are times where you have to do that, but that always set with me. Like forever, I was motivated and understood and also empowered. And I did a stint for about 10 years in sales too, between a 10-year marketing career and the last 10 or so in the CMO role. But it was phenomenal to have those mentors especially when you're moving into a new role or trying to move into a new role. You need people that kind of have either charted that course or know where the landmines are.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. just one other aside. So I have also, over my career, had people that were just, I think, ended up being mentors without any real planning, and then times where I've actively pursued it. I've got one person right now that I don't know why I thought about it, but I actually thought, well, I want somebody who's maybe not as far in career, maybe younger, and like so that person is a mentor for me, which I think most people would be surprised about. But it's been one of the most valuable mentor
Yes.
relationships because, especially as I've gotten younger, newer people coming in, I talk through a challenge, and I'm like, this is what I think I do, and then they give me another perspective on how that might come across, and it's been super valuable.
Yeah, it's humbling all the time, and it's just never stop learning. These aren't cliches. There's a reason for it. It's not just to be, well, you want to be relevant in your career for sure, but I think you get to do more interesting things. You get the opportunities. Let's just take marketing ops. I remember it was not a profession. I'll give you back when I put in this significant investment, 7-figure investment in Eloqua, one of the first to do it, right? Had no idea what we were doing. We looked around. Who's done anything around CRM, right?
Right.
Do you even have the aptitude to be able to handle an app? And the iPhone, it was just coming out, all that, and okay, we got a SWAT team, and you're up. And that became, honestly, all three of those people now are in marketing ops and et cetera. But that's how you pick that. Sometimes, right? As AI comes in, you may be a person that's very comfortable with how you build apps and how you apply those things. That might be a calling card that, someone younger gets plucked and said, you get it, you show it, you prove it, you show that you can learn as fast as anybody else, you get the opportunity. Because it's nuts to think. The best was like when ABM came around, like 2000, came out a while ago, but let's be realistic, 15, 16 people started. Well, I need someone who's been doing ABM for 4 years and all this stuff. And I'd roll my eyes and go, you need someone who's interested, curious, who gets the mechanics of sales and marketing and data, and you're going to give them this role, and you're going to send them to a few conferences, you're going to and support them, and let's get going. Now, if you're doing something after the best practices playbook's been written, then maybe that's not the case. But there's so many opportunities like that in marketing ops to grab that and write it, and then that takes you to another place, to the chief of staff, to maybe more expansive, something more interesting. But I always was the person who raised their hand and said, yeah, I'll do that. I'll try it. We need someone to run customer success. I think I can do that. Let's go.
You can figure it out.
The team that if they ever watch this, they'll go, well, okay, we'll give them about a C, best case. But we got through the year of that, and we got to a better place. And that's the kind of thing I think that you have to embrace it for me in your career, no matter what it is. But marketing ops, because the foundation is so strong in the fundamentals of running a business and certainly running marketing, that there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's spot on. I definitely echo the same sentiments repeatedly to folks that communicate with me about their career trajectory in marketing ops. I think you have an incredible line of sight on what happens inside of an organization. And because you know what's going on, that foundation can just skyrocket you to totally new places. I mean, think for a moment about if you're in a tech company or just a services company, like there are business operations problems that you actually could figure out how to solve with technology, not MarTech, just like typical technology solutions that say, hey, it's really hard for me to take a quote and get it to an invoice and get that thing paid. Well, you have a technical acumen for understanding how things integrate. I'll bet you can figure out how to do that really fast, right?
Absolutely.
That's like client success at a tech company, like all of it, right?
You can go to your network, you can hack, you can research. It's your brain pattern.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an invaluable skill.
There's a QuickBooks integration into HubSpot these days, right? And so like, how do I marry those two things together? That's not a marketing operations person's problem necessarily, but you have the technical acumen to figure out how that infrastructure works. And now you can partner with finance.
And you have the process thinking too. I emphasize that because you can see things now play out so you go from in the beginning of your career, you have the microscope down because you're typically working on something hands-on or specific. Typically, not everybody. Then you kind of, okay, I start to go into meetings and I got the windshield view. I kind of see what's going on in front of me. I got it. And then over time, you've gone through enough patterns, you put your hand on the hot stove enough, you start to look up, right? Now I got a telescope view. And now I can see out and I can project more. I can see if I do this, this, and this, or we do this, this, and this, you can see the end game. And that's what's so valuable about being in, to me, MarTech as a foundation of thinking. And I say MarTech as an example of the ops profession. Because once you have that ops mindset, as you said, like you can go across different functions, you can go into different roles.
For better or worse.
Yeah, so I was just say maybe we wrap it up here after this. But I was had somebody I've worked with at my company. We got to meet in person for first time earlier this week, and he's like, you really ask good questions, and it really hit me. I was like, but I think that's one of those things. Like, I think that's why people in this kind of role who are good at it, if they move to another functional area, like we just naturally ask questions. Like we want to understand.
Yeah.
Right.
It's how your brain's been wired to do because you can't solve, if you only got a piece of the information, you went out to do something like, oh boy. So now you're wired. What are the information we need to get going? So your brain gets wired like that. It's really powerful. We underestimate that.
No, I've had that be a crutch to me before, but for the most part, it's an asset.
Asking too many questions?
I have been told, stop. You're questioning it too much. Just accept it. This is good enough. Stop asking.
Well, there's that too. All right.
You do have to find the balance.
Therapy sessions next week. For you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, I would love to go on, Scott. I always enjoy talking to you. I think our audience is going to benefit from this quite a bit. But if folks want to connect with you or kind of follow or learn from you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm kind of prolific on LinkedIn as a hub to share points of view and put points of view out on different topics. I am an analyst in the AI cloud space at something called Acceleration Economy. So I get to write, and I kept my column in MarTech, you guys, because I can't let go of my roots. So I still publish once a month. This one's on content marketing, and it's not an AI story. It's the opposite. Just to give for fun. It's
nice.
AI putting content in the spotlight could not be a better thing because now you can show what great content is. You can elevate your game. So not to go run out necessarily and turn everything into AI, but use it as an opportunity to showcase what you guys do and to level up. And that's the example of the stuff I write on MarTech, but almost always push most of it through LinkedIn. That way to connect with my networks and people I trust and admire and learn from.
Fantastic. Scott, awesome. This has been so much fun. Thanks to all of our listeners. Thanks, Mike, for hanging in there with me and supporting this. We'll get Naomi back here soon, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Until next time. Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, you guys. Bye-bye.